Well, hey, Katie, so glad you joined. I really appreciate you setting aside some time. You've been on a really awesome journey the past couple of months. It's been a lot of fun to see you grow, and you're paying it forward, which is also really cool, not just because you are in a leadership role, like in your own life and your career, which I think is really cool. I want you to talk a little bit about that in a minute. But also you've gone through a very unique mental health journey that I think is very rarely understood in the world, because like not many people who have not experienced it directly really can even wrap their heads around it. But especially after COVID, we've seen that all sorts of people are dealing with health related anxiety stuff. So I thought, just to kind of set the stage, just so people can kind of get to know a little bit about your context, like, can you share a little bit about what were you going through a couple months ago? What was daily life kind of like for you, where you realized I need to do something different here?
Yeah, so a couple months ago, I was really hyper focused on like this certainty of always having my blood sugars like be 100% awesome all the time. And obviously, just like anything, blood sugars go up and down. And so I was like just obsessing over these numbers on my insulin pump. And I was constantly checking and checking and checking, almost like someone who's like obsessed with constantly checking social media. And it just made me less certain, and it made me so much more like just paranoid and not present in my life. And it just allowed me to focus on like all these just extraneous things that I didn't need to be focusing on. And it really made me kind of feel very isolated and very just alone. And so I felt like I kept saying, like, I just feel like I'm like out of the game. Like, I feel like I'm just sitting out, like watching it and not actually like out there doing
Yeah.
anything or like playing on the field. And it was really just, it was hard. And I realized that I had had like a sort of a panic attack in February, right before I signed up for the
Mhm.
course. And looking back on that now, it was so related to like everything I was doing, and the fact that I was obsessing over my blood sugar so much that I actually like thought myself into this place where I thought something really bad was always going to happen to me. So it was a hard place to be in. And yeah, it was definitely, I definitely needed the course way more than I thought I did at the time too. Um, and I like hindsight's 2020, right? But it was just, yeah, it was a very paralyzing place to be in.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah, and I think that you touched on so many interesting things. Like anybody who's encountered this health anxiety thing, I've seen it for all sorts of people. People who have literally, like, the doctors have checked them head to toe, and they're telling them there is nothing wrong with you at all. But they still keep thinking, no, 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 there's something with my heart. There's something with my heart, or there's something with my liver, or who knows, right? The mind can just pick like a crazy thing. I mean, this is how anxiety works, right? Health anxiety is really no different than regular anxiety, where your mind is just constantly looping and anticipating either something is wrong or something's about to go wrong, right? And making it feel so believable that you get consumed in it. So I know anybody listening, has definitely experienced that. One thing I was hoping you could touch on before we dig into kind of the meat and potatoes of some of the things that worked for you. So you were obviously fixated on the health, and how did that translate into other parts of your life, right? Because as soon as we're in a different emotional state, other areas of our life start to feel maybe less in control. Or I'm just curious if you could speak to that a little.
Yeah, so because of like me just always constantly stressing out about my health too, I started to like go out with my friends less, and I started feeling really guilty if I like was out late and I wasn't getting enough sleep, because I felt like it was going to hurt me in the long run and like
Mhm.
mess up blood sugars, and then I was going to be in, trouble and in danger, and I was going to end up in the hospital. So like I would keep myself out of like social situations, or like I would like try and get home early for no reason, just to like sit and do nothing and just be in this like relaxed state, which wasn't actually
Right.
me being relaxed. It was just me freaking out and trying to feel that certainty, trying to feel like, you know, relaxed. And the more that I chased it, the more it got away from me. And it was such an odd concept to think about. And going through the course, it really made me realize that's what I was doing. I was like constantly on this wild goose chase for something that I was never going to get because I was focusing way too hard on all the what ifs. That what if this happens? What if my blood sugars, end up crashing? What if, I'm not able to snap out of it? Whatever. It was like this whole big spiral essentially that would happen. So it really kept me, from a lot of social situations. And then you mentioned, like I'm in a leadership position, so I'm a teacher at a middle school, and I just noticed that it was like I would be on my lunch break and I would be focusing on my blood sugars and worrying about if they're going to drop and if I'm going to pass out or something. So I wouldn't talk to any of my employees, or like any of my workmates, and I wouldn't like reach out for help if I needed anything. I would just kind of sit in my classroom a lot and like focus on my health. And so
Yeah.
it ended up making me feel even worse and even like more just out of control because I wasn't reaching out to anyone. I wasn't talking to anyone. I felt like I was just kind of sitting there like watching, the numbers just go up and down. And it was very, very hard. So yeah, it started to really affect a lot of aspects of my life.
Yeah, that's pretty wild. I think you touched on so many really important things. And this is like how, a temporary mental health. It's crazy how sometimes you can have like a bad day and then the mind will fixate on that. And then fast forward a couple of weeks or months, and now your whole life has gotten tunnel visioned on survival mode. And that's kind of what you're talking about, right? Like you essentially your whole decision-making process, and this happens for everyone I've worked with, where your brain just goes into got to be healthy, got to be healthy, got to be healthy, and every little decision goes through that same little filtering mechanism. And one thing I really want to make sure the viewers get out of this, for as far as a takeaway, and you said it pretty much verbatim in your own words that I know we touched on in like the first month or so, was with anxiety, the delusion we tell ourselves is, I just have to pin down every little variable. Like I just have to make sure that every little thing is exactly where it needs to be, whatever it is. Like whether it's somebody checking the oven 5 times, or whether it's you checking your insulin or your numbers or whatever, or who knows, right? It's like this mental checklist essentially that we try to do. But the problem is the checklist just never ends. Like your brain is constantly adding to it as it's taking things off. And so the more you chase certainty, the less certain you actually feel. That's exactly what you said. And I really want people to get that. And we had to create a totally different way to look at things. And then also too, what's really powerful about what you just said is like, I don't know, maybe I don't want to put words in your mouth. You can correct me if I'm wrong here, but generally when you get into that state of fear, it tends to cause you to evaluate like everything you're doing in your life differently, like feeling less secure in like love life, or like feeling less secure like in the value you can produce in your career, that type of thing. Like, and I know a lot of people feel that sense of like, well, I just don't want to be like a drag to other people if I'm just stressing out being around. It's different for everybody, but that state that you're in kind of filters your whole life, and everything you look at through a different lens. So was that kind of your experience too?
Yeah. So, I feel like now looking, and it's so funny looking back now because it's like I can see it so clearly
Right,
now. And it's
right,
just
right.
frustrating because it's like I wish I could just talk to my past self, because my past self a lot would be like, oh, I just need to be secure in my career, and then like I will, have all these things. Or like, I can't be in a relationship right now because I'm too focused on my career and I just don't, I don't have time for that. And I'm not like mentally there yet because of all these other things that I need to check off. And it was like, it came to a point where like, even my friends were like, my parents were like, no dates. And I'm like, no, just I'm just like focusing on my career and I'm just doing this. And I would always come up with an excuse. And it was going on like me being single for like over 2 years, which was like a pretty long time, especially since I'm only 23 years old. So it was very interesting how it like started to affect then like me sort of staying out of like those kinds of like dating or romantic situations, because I was like always looking for that certainty and like looking for a higher position or like a more established, you know, whatever in my teaching field. And it's kind of just like crazy to think about like pausing that whole aspect of my life just because I'm like working on, you know, working essentially.
Yeah, that's
It was
crazy.
great. Yeah, it
Yeah.
was.
Oh, go ahead.
It's just funny to look back at it now because I didn't realize how like all the excuses that I had for it and all the like boxes that I wanted to check off
Right.
before I
Right.
would like have a relationship.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you were in your own version of the classic story that I see 1,000 times a year, which is human beings trading what would actually make them fulfilled for what would make them feel safe. Right.
Mhm.
And, you know, and then the challenge is the more we prioritize safety, the less safe we feel. And so we get neither the feeling of safety or the feeling of fulfillment. So pretty wild. And so, you know, whenever somebody goes through the program, there are always a couple highlights for them. You know, there's usually a couple big light bulb moments, you know, at least maybe 2 or 3, something like that. I'm curious, like kind of looking back, you know, and it's interesting you say that, like, you probably don't even recognize the person from a couple of months ago in some ways. And that happens for so many people, you know, but what do you feel like were a couple of the like light bulb moments as you went through it, that you'll take away from this experience for the years in the future?
One of the big light bulb moments was like the control room exercise where you kept saying like throughout the program, like you have access to every emotion possible at, you know, any time of the day. And I would be like, oh my God, yeah, okay, whatever, Ty, shut up. Like,
Right.
like,
Yeah. That sounds so like just like anybody could make that claim. Like, yeah, of course.
but it actually like I started to really realize like I am in control of this, and like that the control room exercise, I think that's like module 7 maybe or something like that. And I did that exercise and I realized like, oh my goodness, like I really do have, you know, every emotion possible like available in that moment. And that really turned things around for me, because I felt like I then was behind, you know, was behind the steering wheel instead of being like the passenger on like this crazy uncontrollable roller coaster ride. Another big moment for me too was and I just lost it now, of course I did. Another big moment was the um oh my gosh, I'm forgetting the name of it now. Why can I not forget the name of it?
Just describe it and I'll remember the name probably.
It was not the heartbeat meditation. It was the one. Why am I losing? I totally.
Was it one of the guided things?
It was. Oh, I totally forgot now.
Well, what was the takeaway that you got? Do you remember that?
It was like the aspect about the not the control room, but then after the control room, the getting curious about your anxiety after that one. That
Mm-hmm.
was really that one was really like beneficial for me, and I didn't even realize like how much it would have helped me in the moment, because I was just like, oh, get curious, like, oh, why am I feeling anxious, you know, like, but now I do it like all the time where I'll come up like really with a lot of feelings too, not just anxiety, like depression, or like if I'm feeling like angry in that moment or like feeling out of control or overwhelmed. Yeah. I'll be like, why is this happening right now? Why am I feeling like this? And that really allows me to like get behind it instead of it being like this, I can like sort of get on the same side as the problem, which I
Right,
think
you got it.
that's like verbatim what you say in the video is like get on the same side of your anxiety. Like, don't try and sit there because what you resist persists.
Right, right. Yep, exactly.
All that is coming back to me because on days where I'll be driving into work and being like, oh my God, this, and this. And I'm like, God, I'm so anxious. Like, why? I'd sit back now and I'm like, why am I feeling like this right now? And then I realize I'm like, oh, I haven't been keeping up with my rituals, or, oh, I, didn't do this and I didn't check off this and I didn't do my heart meditation.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and it like really allows me to kind of get behind the problem and fix
Yeah.
it and fix it right away instead of letting it just persist and letting it just get out of hand and just going, oh, poor me. And oh, when is this going to end? And why me? And it like really allows me to, okay, what can I do here to like fix this? Why is this happening? So that has been something that's been a huge takeaway. And then of course, like the daily rituals and things like that, just keeping up with it.
Mhm.
And just like the tuning timers too. And the that whole primary question and asking myself like just different questions in my head, because you don't realize the questions that you're just subliminally like asking yourself every single day
Right,
until you write it all out and you're like, oh
right,
my God, this is how I'm talking to myself every day. No wonder I feel like this.
right. That's powerful.
Yeah. And so now with my new questions, it like literally allows me to be more successful because I am asking myself better questions.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. I mean, you touched on so many really awesome things right there. And the one thing I really would like to make sure that people who are at the very beginning of the journey take out of this was that whole, what you resist persisting, because there's really kind of three sort of modes that people can get in, and you touched on all of them without kind of realizing it. There's the one mode that people get into where they get essentially pissed at themselves, like the mind is going in that classic what if pattern, and then we go, why am I doing this? What is the problem with me? Why am I like this? Right? And you get in that mode where you're fighting with yourself, but you're just creating more clutter in the mind, and so you get further away from the goal, which is peace. And then on the other side, instead of getting angry, it's the whole, let me just succumb, let me just surrender, let me just give in, let me just presume it's hopeless mode, right? Where we all become like a victim, lick our wounds type of attitude. And generally people will swing from one side to the other throughout this journey, and they'll spend more time in one of them. Like some people get more pissed generally, and some people get more sad. The goal is to be right in that sweet spot that you're talking about. And one thing that I think you've really learned is you're not going to always be in control, but you can always be in charge. And that's the key thing of this, right? Like the human mind is going to make you feel anxious periodically every so often. That's just our biological thing. It's meant to kind of look for danger every so often, but it's not meant to stay looping in danger. And what you've figured out now is like, okay, yeah, I'm going to feel things, but you now have such a wide variety of tools. And not only do you know the tools, you've practiced them enough so that you don't really have to like struggle for so long. You've just built that new habit of being able to respond differently. And that's what this whole concept of mental health mastery is really all about, is like training yourself so that you will feel pain periodically, as all human beings do, but you don't have to stay there. And that's the cool thing, like I would say that emotional pain is going to be a fact of life. We're all going to have challenging situations, but suffering is optional. You don't have to stay stuck in it. And that's the cool thing. So I love it. So you said, I wish I could go back and speak to myself a couple months ago. And in a way, you're doing that right now. It may seem strange, but there are going to be people who view this who are literally dealing with the same junk that you were just a short time ago. They feel consumed in it. They feel, maybe like hopeless about it. Some of them, it's been years, maybe decades even. What would be like the number one thing you would say to Katie from a couple months ago, or, by extension, somebody who's watching dealing with something similar?
I think definitely if you make a change, your life will change. That's what I would say. Just definitely look into your routine, because you can find, that will spell out a lot of your issues for you. And yeah, just it works if you do. So like I would definitely say that to, past me who's like, oh, I don't know, or like still kind of bargaining and flirting with like just living the rest of my life the way that I was, because I'm like, I just can't imagine it. My life has changed like so much for the better. And like just I'm in such a different spot than I was. And yeah, I definitely would never think about going back. So I would just say to myself, like, yeah, it works if you do, and if you make a change, it will change.
That's awesome. So last question for you. So since life has changed, just a couple short months ago, you probably had a vision of what your future was going to be like, right? And so I'm curious, what were you anticipating the future was going to be like then? And now that your life is different, what are you looking forward to? What is the future going to be like for you?
Yeah, so a few months ago, I was, yeah, basically just in survival mode, and I was just kind of like, I was thinking that I was going to probably have like a heart attack or something by like age 30 because of how stressed out I was and how like burnt out I felt from just trying to always feel that, that relaxed, that certainty, that significance in my career too, and then not having anything outside of it because I was so focused on, checking off all the boxes that I never, got to live outside of those boxes. So I think the future that I would have had if I had stayed, it would just be really sad. I would just be hanging on, instead of actually like living my life. And I might check off all the boxes, and like I might, get to a place in my career too where, like I feel powerful, I guess, or significant. But I definitely think like everything else would be totally lacking, and I would be very just unwell underneath of it all. And yeah, I think work would probably become like a performance just because of how unhappy I am outside of it.
Sure.
So I think now though, my life is just so different. Like I just don't stress out about the same things. I don't think about like just hanging on or just like surviving. It's a lot more like I live for, the good moments outside of work too. And I live for like the variety and the like just unexpected, like loving moments that I have now. And yeah, and I think my future right now is not all spelled out as it, and I'm only 23, so it's it's not going to be, but like I'm in a much better position in like a really good school, and I love like my students. I love the admin that I work with, and I also have a boyfriend now, and things are really great, and I'm looking forward to hanging out with him this weekend. And we're trying to cook a new meal, because we've been like, that's one of our like challenges that we want to do, is to try cooking something new every weekend now.
Nice.
And yeah, and so I'm really excited about that. I've been enjoying going up north and going on the jet ski with my parents and my friends, and it's been really good, because I think a couple of months ago I would have been terrified to be separated from my insulin pump and in the water, and then not have it right next to me. And now I'm just like, when my blood sugars go up or down, I handle the issue and I don't look back. I just keep on going.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm just really excited. I'm about to start teaching choir here soon, and next week. So I'm excited about that. And yeah, anytime like troubles arise, I kind of just get curious about it, and I try and fix the issue and then focus on what I'm doing, and the next fun thing that I can do. So that's kind of where I'm at now, and I'm so much happier, and just my whole mindset and everything is just completely different.
That's awesome. What I'm noticing about this is you're living in the moment. almost always now, right? I mean, that's so cool. That's what we all want, and you've arrived, and that's so cool. That's so cool. And what's also inspirational about your story is obviously you have type 1 diabetes. So, this is going to be, that's going to be a fact of your life for your whole life, but it doesn't have to be a limit on your life. And you've really realized that. And I think that's inspiring for so many people, because some people who are dealing with this type of thing have a chronic issue or something that's, going to be with them, but that doesn't mean it has to be a chronically mentally painful thing, and that's so cool. I don't know if you really know it, or you do or you don't, but I mean, you have provided just so many gifts in this conversation to so many souls who are going to see this. And it is just, it means the world to me that you're using your path to educate and empower other people. You have no idea how much that's going to help somebody else. And you're so kind, you're so generous, you're such a good soul. And I'm just so happy for you and all the progress you made. And hopefully our paths will cross again sometime soon, or you'll send me a fun update or something every so often. I love to get those from clients. And I just wish you all the absolute best, Katie. Until we meet again, congratulations.
Definitely. Thank you so much, Ty. I'm glad I could help give back. And yeah, thank you so much for everything you've done for me.
Of course, absolutely. You deserve it. All right. See you, Katie. Thanks so much. Bye.